Oh, here we go.
Hey, okay, hi everyone. All right, so we were at Disney World, and my husband was really into this Facebook Live. So he was filming the fireworks and things like that. And we said, hey, why not when we get home film me doing my daily painting? So this is the first time we're giving it a try. So we'll see how it goes. And so it's a typical Sunday late afternoon. We finished our errands, and it's time for me to come down to the studio and paint, which the studio's a mess, by the way, because I really haven't been home probably for longer than a few days at a time since April. So I have various work in progress and messes to clean up, and I intend to do that over the next couple of weeks. But that's not keeping me from painting. So I'm going to just ignore the mess and come over to my little corner and paint. Now, what do you paint when you don't know what to paint? Well, I have an inspiration jar. And this is what I do is just, I put pictures in here that I know I want to paint at some time. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and pull one out, and I liked it at one time. And so usually I'll say, okay, well then go with that and see what you can do with that. So I've already picked out my subject for today, and it's over here. I'll show you. And it's a little photo of a forest. And this was in Finland, when I was in Finland last summer. And I selected it out of the inspiration jar because it was something that I wanted to paint, but it's a perfect thing to paint on a very, very hot summer day. So we're going through a heat wave here in Atlanta, and I guess most of the country. And so thinking back of very nice, cool Finland in the forest is enjoyable thought. So the first thing that I did is, you notice I'm working from a very small photograph that I printed out on just regular printer paper. And I usually print like 12 to a page. And I like working from this small photo so that I can use my imagination and work from memory to create a painting that hopefully will be better than the photograph. But I have to first simplify it, and so to simplify it I did a very quick thumbnail. And just black and white. I sometimes do it with 4 values and different markers. Sometimes I'll spend more time on them, but the dog is getting into the trash. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So this is just a quick thumbnail just to give me an idea of what I want to do. And so the first thing I'm going to do is with a pencil, and I'm using uart 400 grit sanded pastel paper. The first thing that I want to do is just draw in the big shapes of the painting. And usually I want to ask myself what it is that is attracting me to this scene. So what is it that I want to paint? What is it that I want to express? And I think what it is the coolness of the green. So working with the green and expressing the coolness. And I love these very light trunks on the birch trees. So I'm going to just sort of indicate them in the painting here. And there's some in the distance, and then there's a couple coming out from the other side. So this is just a very rough sketch, and it's just basically to place the main features of the painting. Now in my photo there's no sky, and I think I want to introduce a little bit of sky, so I'm going to just do that as the painting progresses. And I do like that there's a little bit of an indication of a pathway, so I think I want to change the direction to come in from this side.
Donna says hi from Canada.
Hi Donna, my friend from Canada.
Yep.
Alright, so what I'm going to do is block in with one color but use 4 values of the color. And I'll start off with, and I'm using pink. And I'm using pink only because reds, oranges, pinks is the complement of all the greens that I'm going to be using, and so hopefully that will give some relief to the green. So if the underpainting is in these red or pink warm tones, maybe that will help give a little excitement and relief to all the overwhelming greenness. But because the trunks are light, I don't want to block them in with a dark. So I'm using the darkest for the trees that are in the, behind the trunks. Oops, excuse me. And then I'll do the same thing for this side. And I don't really worry if I'm using hard or soft pastels in this part, although this one happens to be a hard one. But if I'm using a softer one, I make sure that I use a very light touch. And I know if I'm using a light enough touch, if I can still see the color of the paper underneath. You can still see the paper color, so then I know I'm okay with how light I'm doing. Now I need a color for, let's see, I want it a little bit lighter for the background trees. I got butterfingers today. So, it's not really lighter, but it's a different color, so that'll work.
Hey, Rashmi. Do you know Rashmi?
No.
Rashmi says hi.
Hi, Rashmi. And I'm just going to put some color in on the path and then in the tree trunks as well, because they're lighter colors. And the whole point of doing this is just basically to color the paper so that I'm not fighting the tone of the light tone of the paper. I find that I tend to be I have a better chance of creating mud and putting too much pastel down when I have to cover up the paper. So, but I'm going to do one thing before I start, and here it is. I have a piece of pipe insulation foam, and I'm going to go ahead and I want to rub all of this in. All of this pink color that I just put in, I just want to rub it all in. And I want to get a nice soft, kind of ambiguous underpainting that I can then build the painting on top of. I don't really need that anymore.
Marlene says hi.
Hi, Marlene. Okay. Now, typically what I do after I have the underpainting done is I like to select the colors that I'm going to use for the painting. So what I'll do is I'll take my photograph and I'll come over to my big pastel box, and I also have, if I don't have a color in here, then I've got trays with various colors. I'm not super organized with it, but it works well enough for me. So I look at the picture and I say, okay, what am I going to use for each element of this landscape? So I'll say, okay, what am I going to use for the darks? The dark, rich areas that are underneath all the greens, or the dirt. I like to call it the dirt. So I need some dark values, and I think I'll start with some. It really, truly doesn't matter what color you select as long as you have the right value. So I'll pick this dark kind of burgundy brown, and then maybe this. I already have some red and pink down there. How about a little bit of purple? Purple's always nice. How about a little bit of dark blue? So as long as these colors are close in value, maybe they're not exactly the same, but they're close, then they're going to work together to create an interesting mix of color. So those four will work really well, I think, for the dirt. And then I need to have, there's a lot of greens, so let's start with the greens that are in the distance. So the greens that are in the distance have to be cooler or bluer, and maybe even a little bit lighter, because I want them to look like they're behind the trees that are in the foreground. So I'm looking through my greens, and I'm trying to find greens that are lighter and cooler, that look a little bit bluer, or even duller, like gray. So here's some blue greens. She doesn't know what we're doing. She thinks it's all about her. That's a lot. That's probably more than I need. Sometimes I get carried away. I don't need that many. And then I'm moving forward, and I say to myself, okay, what greens do you need for the leaves on the trees? So I pick some greens that are a little bit warmer.
Marlene says hi, Heidi.
Heidi doesn't know why I'm. Sometimes I talk when I paint, and she likes to come down and listen to me. But she doesn't understand why we're standing here with the phone, and she thinks she's expecting something. So I take usually, I don't know, usually no more than 10 minutes in this part of the painting process. And the whole idea for me is that if I take this time now to be slow and selective about what pastels I'm going to use, then it's going to be a lot easier to paint and not have to keep stopping and thinking. So really I'm doing my stopping and thinking right now so that when I start the painting, it's just more fun to just respond to the painting and just paint. And not have to stop and say, oh, what color do I need? Or would this color work? Or would this value work? It's easier to just get it done in the beginning stages and then have the whole palette to work from and not have to stop and ruin that flow. You know, the whole goal is to get into the zone, right? So that when you are painting, you can just kind of let go. Now I'm working on the colors for the grasses. So I'm trying to choose some colors for the distant grass and then colors for the grasses that are coming up to the foreground. I may actually ultimately get and use some of the colors from the 90s Terry Ludwig set of greens, which I've not integrated into my other pastels. And if I'm doing a painting that has a lot of greens, a lot of times I will work right from this box.
Hey, Laura. Laura from Buffalo.
Hi, Laura. Laura?
Laura.
Are you Laura from Buffalo? My Laura?
Laura from Boca, sorry.
Oh, okay. How funny. All right, now I need colors for the tree trunks. Now the tree trunks, we think of birch as maybe, we might say, oh, but they're white. But we're not going to paint them with white, so we're going to paint them with color. And so I'm going to probably use some purples, maybe some blues. So I'm going to pull out some colors that I think will work for the trunks. Maybe some peaches. Maybe put her upstairs.
Yeah, we know it's you, Laura.
And colors for the path. So this part seems a little tedious, a little time consuming, but really it's the one thing that I think really truly helps me paint and paint faster.
Here's a question from Arlene. Will you be using all of those colors, or are they available choices?
Just available choices, and I may not use them all, but I like to have them here. And another reason why I like to pull them out is because now I can look at them and say to myself, does that look like an interesting or a harmonious color scheme? And my eye tells me that, yeah, I think those all go together, but like, what if I threw that one in there? I don't like that. And I can immediately see that it's not working.
Right.
So I won't put it in there. But that's not to say that I won't pull colors from the box as I'm painting, but this is just to give me a starting point. And so that's what I like to do, just have a starting point. And I'm just getting a clean rag. I like to keep a rag over my shoulder so that I can clean them as I go. Now I'll put my picture up here. And to begin with...
Audrey says hi.
Hi, Audrey?
Marjorie.
Marjorie, okay, hi. Now, I'm going to start by blocking in the darks. So I'm reinforcing the dark areas. And what I'm going to do, attempt to do anyways, is to have these light color birch tree trunks appear by sort of painting around them with the dark. And I need to make sure they're grounded somewhat. And I'm also reminding myself to use a light touch. And I'm darkening the foreground area and just sort of the edges of the pathway. Now I don't want these trees on this side to be the same exact placement. I don't want, in other words, I don't want bookends, and I've sort of created bookends in the initial drawing, so I'm going to make a correction, and I think what I'm going to do is pull these tree trunks down a little bit more so that they're not all on the same plane. I want there to be a variety. It's always have to check yourself, because your brain really wants to keep things organized, but we really prefer to look at things that are not perfectly organized and regular. We like the irregularity of things.
Dorothea says hi.
Hi, Dorothea. Welcome home.
And Rob McKay. Okay.
Welcome. So I'm throwing in some of these purples. Putting in some indications of distant tree trunks, just because. Now I've got one layer of dark. Now I'm going to, remember I pulled out 4 different colors. Let's keep them together. Now I'm going to go in with the dark blue. Remember, the whole idea for me is to create a more interesting blend of the darks. And I see how my brain has made these all nice and organized and regular. I'm going to want to change that. That's going to be not as interesting. So I'm going to want to stagger those a little bit. My paper's curling up at the bottom, so I have to work. That's my pet peeve.
Marsha, right?
Okay, and then I'm putting in the other dark color that I had initially pulled, and layering that in the area of the darks. So everywhere where I have darks, I'm layering all of those colors, and I've created hopefully a more interesting mix of dirt or dark colors than if I had just used dark green. I could very easily have painted dark green, because really that's what it is in here, but I wanted it to be a little bit more interesting. Now I will come in with some of the darker green.
Judy said thanks. Judy Albright says thanks.
Hi,
this
Judy.
is going to inspire my week.
Oh, thank you.
That's Marsha Wright from the Arizona Pastel Artists Association.
Hi, Marsha. And so I'm just putting in some of the green. So I do want to have green, because there is a lot of green, but I didn't want to have the green right away. I want to build up to the green. Oops, butterfingers.
And Jerry Hill. Nicholas Thompson says hi.
Hi.
Love your work.
Thank you. Now, I'm done with the dark, so what I want to do is move on, and I want to block in a little bit more of the greens before I put in that You know what I didn't do? I didn't pull out the sky color. So I'm going to have to go back into the box. So I'm going to put in some of this distant green. Remember I said I wanted to choose some cooler blue greens for the distance. So I have a variety of those that I'm using. I do not see this. This is not a color that I see in my photograph. But what I'm doing is I'm exaggerating what I see in the photograph so that I can give that illusion of depth. In the photograph, it all looks about the same color green, the same exact green. But if I were to paint it with all the same value or the same stick of green, then it would look like it was all on the same plane. You wouldn't have any feeling of depth. So I'm intentionally exaggerating the colors that I see here. Put some distant tree trunks, and then just tap them with my finger a little bit so that I can cause them to just disappear. I just want to suggest them. Now I can put a little bit more of the green that's in the foreground, so you can see this green that I'm using now is a little bit more intense, and it has a little more yellow in it, and hopefully it will come forward and allow the blue greens to sit in the background a little bit better.
Carol from Florida looks forward to learning from you at the Northport Art Center.
Oh, I'm looking forward to coming in February. I'm just working on my schedule this morning and blocked that off. Well, I had it blocked off, but I'm excited to come. All right, now I have enough information that I can come and do the sky. So I want to do something for the sky. I'm just going to do a very pale.
Tom Bailey says, wonderful, totally unexpected gift to turn on the computer and find you doing this. Perfect way to take a break from the heat.
Good. I know, it's terrible. Very hot. I needed to paint something cool after walking around Disney World in, what'd they say, it felt like 106. So I'm using a very, very pale blue, a couple of pale blues. And I want there to be a little bit of variety to the blues.
Oh, hey Kate. Hey Dale.
So I'm adding a couple of different, and I'm also starting to carve into the trees so I can create some air or some sky holes within those trees, and then I'll tap them with my finger so that they're not like Christmas ornaments.
And Holly's here too. And Deb.
Hi Holly and Deb.
Caitlin. Corey too.
And Corey.
Corey.
Hi
what
Corey.
Are you doing?
You're supposed to be driving.
Did you get a notification?
What?
I wonder if Corey got a notification that you were on.
I don't know how that works. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've got everything pretty much blocked in. So I'm going to start from the background to the foreground and to create the grassy areas. But before I do that, I want to add a little bit more what I like to call dirt. And so I'm going to go back with those pinks that I used in that earlier stage in the underpainting.
Here's a question. How did you decide where to put the sky holes?
It was so that I can create interesting shapes. I mean, the photograph doesn't really tell me. It doesn't show me because I'm changing it so much from the photograph. The photograph is acting more as something as to inspire me or to jog my memory of the place. So since I'm sort of making it up, basically, I want to be conscious of making interesting shapes. That's my goal. So I'm adding some color down into this, what is going to be grass, and I'm calling this dirt because I just don't want it to be green. And I'm going to start in the distance, so in the distant grass, I'm going to use this cooler green, and I'm going to also use short horizontal bands, and I'm going to sneak it behind the trees. Whenever I can sneak things behind things, it helps give layers. If I can have layers, I've got that pathway that I have to be careful that I preserve. And so I'm just taking the greens that I've already selected down here. So see how easy this is? I don't have to keep diving back into the box and stopping and saying, oh gosh, I need a new color. What color should I use? Because I already have these colors, and these are the ones that I'm sort of challenging myself to work with, rather than keep going back and forth into the box. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and put in some indication of that pathway right now. So I like how it just kind of goes back behind the trees. I love the saying, I think it was Robert Onrai who said, the eye should never be led where there is nothing to see. And so I'm always mindful of, if I'm creating a pathway in a painting, that it takes us somewhere. So where's this going to go? Well, I have to make sure it's going to take us somewhere where we enjoy. And I'm going to darken. That's not dark enough. I want to darken the path as it comes down so that it doesn't just take us right out of the painting. I kind of want it to be a subtle exit, so I'm not going to have it bright all the way to the back. All right, now I can go ahead and continue with the grass. Oops. Now I can start to show the grass growing. And I'm making my marks a little bit different than the marks I made in the distance. And I'm also starting to press a lot harder. So up until this point I like to call it making whispering marks. But when I'm getting to making those final marks, I like to call them shouting marks. So I'm pressing much harder. All right, now I'm going to do something else. I'm going to come in and do some of the tree trunks. I'm going to start with the darkest color that I think I want in those trunks. Now remember, I wanted to stagger them, right? I didn't want them to end all at the same place. So, and even though I told myself that, 9 times out of 10, I'll still make them unstaggered. So I start with the purple, the darkest purple. Now I've got to ask myself, well, where's the light coming from? And I would say it's coming from over this direction, so I can light the right side of these trees. So I'm using a lighter violet to come in and add light to that lighter side. So I started with the dark. On this side, it would be also on there. And I'm just sort of skipping the pastel around so that way it's kind of creating some more painterly branches rather than just all straight up and down. Now, I need to add a little bit of...
Here's Anne from Nebraska. All my family hears when they walk by my studio is the light touch is the right touch.
Oh, it's a good reminder. Okay, so now I'm going to do something so that I can create the finishing touches with the leaves. I'm going to take some workable fixative and I'm going to spray the bottom and spray where the foliage is going to go.
What's some of the king?
Oh, this is... It's Blair Low Odor Fixative, but it stinks. And what I find what it does is it noticeably darkens the painting, which is why I never use it on a finished painting, because look at how it's changed. But what I do enjoy about it is that once it does darken, I'm gonna dive into for some of these greens in here. When I do have that nice rich dark, I'll show you in just a second. I'm adding some grassy area in the distance so I can create more layers. So I'm going into my big box of Terry Ludwig greens. So what I'm doing is I'm just sneaking this green, back, creating layers so that it's not just one flat area of grass. Now, to illustrate what happens when you spray, and then I want to go on top of the spray. It will skip over the fixative. So see, I'm just going over there. It will leave the dark in place. So you can kind of see where I sprayed, and I'm coming over with this brighter green. The darker, and I'll do it down here, you can really see it. See how the dark stays in place? And it allows the green to just skip over, kind of glide over it. And it creates just a feeling of texture or grass that you don't otherwise get. And it's a real good way to kind of bring back a painting that kind of has gotten away from you. So give it a quick spray, and then you can. Well, I'll do another spray. Sometimes I'll do it several times. Oh, look at how it's darkened it.
Guess who's here? Watching. You're amazing. Your mom.
My mom?
Your mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Carol.
All right, so now when you go, it's got to dry. If it's not dry, it doesn't work. So I have to have patience.
Let it dry.
I'll let it dry. Let's give some more light to the edge of these trees.
So we can really see Jenny for a second.
Yeah.
Alright, we're gonna see Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Mary Susan Vaughn. Bonnie Stewart. Theory. Alright, back to the painting.
Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm adding, and it's not white, it's a very, very pale, creamy color.
Yeah, sorry.
And I'm adding a few more branches before I come in and add. Notice I haven't painted any leaves yet at all.
Kitty says leave me alone.
I'm basically, the whole idea is to hint at the foliage and not to actually paint individual leaves. Now I can, excuse me.
Hey, Holly. This is on Facebook Live. I can see your text, and Karen is painting. Hopefully this will save to Facebook. Hey, Dan. And Peg Maines, this is great. What a surprise. Love seeing all the residents of your studio, furry and human. Marsha says hi.
Hi, Marshall.
What type of pastel panel are you using?
I'm using a piece of UArt 400 grade, and it's not mounted at all. I just taped it with hinge tape to the board. And I'm just adding the finishing
Hey, Gareth.
touches.
Yes, I'm the cameraman. Sherpa.
To the birch trees.
Sandy Addington says thank you.
And thanks for watching. And I'm gonna dive over here for a very fine blue so that I can create a few thinner branches. Just kind of flick them on there. Oops. I pressed a little bit too hard for that. And so I'm still trying to keep using the same pastels that I picked initially. And if I can do that for as long as I can, then I feel like
Hi says you do the birch the best.
thank you.
Or me? Is it mine? Am I?
And I'm adding just a few more sky holes. So this is just the finishing touches. And then what I'll do is I'll add just a few bits and pieces of leaves. So I'm pressing quite hard just to add a few little bits and pieces of the leaves with a brighter yellow.
Mario and Minja say hi.
Hi guys.
From Croatia.
Yeah.
Hugs and appreciate this.
My
hearts.
pleasure. I'm finally home and sort of unpacked, sort of. Yeah. All right, then the final thing we do is we always want to add the spices. So the spices are those marks. That's about the same color. I need something a little bit brighter.
Sorry.
All right. Those are those marks that the eye will kind of grab onto. So I only want to put them where I want the eye to go. So I'm adding a few spice marks to help the viewer's eye move around the painting. But I don't want to put them everywhere, because if I put them everywhere, that'll be too much. Oh, I have to be kind of thoughtful as to where I put them. And I do remember one thing about when I was there in Finland. There were, in the forest, there were all these little areas of white flowers. So I think I'll just add a few of those along the forest path. And where those flowers go into the shadows, I'm going to use this pale blue. Even the purple. And where they emerge into the sunlight, they can be brighter. And again, though they have to be placed. Oh, I'll see that exploded, and I got this big, humongous blob. So what I'm going to do is get rid of some of it. It's not a big deal. Well, what do we say? It's only paper, right? So you make a mistake, you get rid of it, and then you come back and fix it. So there, we'll fix that area.
June is very generous and talented.
Oh, thank you.
And he thinks you hope you can get back to Chicago someday.
That was fun. I really would love to do that. Definitely. Okay.
We're gonna be in Chicago.
Yeah. And so basically that's it. I think basically if I were not doing this live on Facebook and I was on my own, I would end up stopping at this point, walking away, going to get a drink, coming back to it with fresh eyes and seeing what else I need to do.
Jane Fields, beautiful. So glad I caught this on Facebook. Lucky me. Steve, watching from
thank
Wales.
You. Wow, thanks. Thanks for tuning in. I'm hoping we can do this on every Sunday, studio time. That's the plan for now anyways. I'm home for a little while. So I'm going to stop right now, but I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch. And I will look at it and reevaluate it and post the finished painting in just a little bit. But thanks. Thanks for watching.
Let's see how to turn this off. Let's see, finish.